I need you to understand something before I tell you this. I was 7 years old when it happened, and for 23 years, I convinced myself it was just my imagination. But last month, I found something in my childhood home that proved everything was real. Every single thing. My parents bought that house in rural Pennsylvania when I was 6. It was one of those old colonials with the original stone foundation from the 1800s, complete with dirt floor basement that always smelled like wet earth and something else I could never quite identify. My mom loved the character. My dad loved the price. I hated that basement from day one. The previous owners left in a hurry. Something about a job transfer, the realtor said. They left behind furniture, boxes of old photographs, and in the basement, they left behind Tommy. I first met Tommy 3 weeks after we moved in. I was playing in my room when I heard what sounded like marbles rolling across the basement ceiling, which was my bedroom floor. The sound was deliberate, rhythmic. Click, click, roll. Click, click, roll. My parents were outside gardening, and I was supposed to be napping. Being a curious kid, I crept downstairs to investigate. The basement door was slightly open, which was strange because Mom always kept it locked. She said it was dangerous down there. Exposed beams, rusty nails, the usual hazards. But that afternoon, the padlock hung open on the latch. The wooden stairs creaked under my small feet as I descended into the darkness. The single bulb at the bottom cast long shadows across the dirt floor. That's when I saw him. A boy, maybe 9 or 10, sitting in the corner playing with marbles on a piece of flat wood he'd balanced on his knees. "Hi," he said without looking up. "I'm Tommy. Want to play? Now here's where you need to pay attention, because this is important." Tommy looked normal, brown hair, jeans, a striped shirt, but his skin had this grayish tint, like he'd been sick for a very long time. And his eyes, when he finally looked at me, were completely black. Not just the pupils, the entire eye. But I was 7. I didn't run. Kids are weird like that. We accept things adults would scream at. Tommy became my secret friend. Every afternoon during nap time, I'd sneak down to play marbles with him. He told me stories about the house, about the families who lived there before. He knew impossible details. What color dress the first owner's daughter wore to her wedding in 1892? How many cats a family in the 1960s owned? Would a man in the 1970s hid money in the walls? How do you know all this stuff? I asked one day. Tommy's black eyes gleamed. "I've been here the whole time. Watching. Waiting. Waiting for what?" He smiled, and I noticed his teeth were too sharp, too many. For a friend who would stay. The games got stranger. Tommy started asking me to bring things down. First just snacks, then scissors, then a knife from the kitchen. I always said no to the knife. He'd get angry, throw the marbles against the wall, make the lights flicker, but he'd always apologize after. "I just get so hungry," he'd say, "and I can't leave this room. Ever. The rules won't let me." "What rules?" "The ones they made when they put me down here. Before you think this is heading where you expect. No, my parents never found out about Tommy. That would have been too simple. The terror came from what Tommy started telling me about them. Your dad isn't your real dad," he said one afternoon, arranging marbles in a strange pattern on the dirt. "Your real dad is still looking for you. He cries every night." "That's not true. You're lying. Your mom took you when you were a baby. Changed your name. She's hiding from something bad she did." I ran upstairs crying that day, but I couldn't tell my parents why. How do you explain that your basement friend is telling you terrible secrets? They'd think I was having nightmares. But Tommy wouldn't let me stay away. At night, I'd hear the marbles rolling upstairs, getting closer to my door. I'd see shadows on the crack that had too many fingers. He'd whisper through the heating vents. Come play, I'm so lonely, so hungry." The breaking point came during Thanksgiving. We had family over, aunts, uncles, cousins. I was playing with my cousin Sarah in my room. When we heard the marbles, she wanted to investigate. I tried to stop her, but she was older, braver. We went down together. Tommy was there, but Sarah couldn't see him. Only I could, but she could feel him. The temperature dropped, so fast our breath came out in clouds. Then Tommy did something I'll never forget. He reached out and touched Sarah's hand, the one I was holding. Through her hand, I felt what Tommy was. Not a boy, not a ghost. Something older, hungrier, wearing a memory of a child like a mask. Sarah's nose started bleeding. She couldn't stop shaking. And Tommy just laughed and laughed. "Bring me more friends," he said, "or I'll have to come upstairs permanently." Sarah had to go to the hospital. The doctors said it was a sudden drop in blood pressure, possible seizure. She doesn't remember going to the basement at all. But I knew what happened. Tommy had tried to take something from her through me. After that, I refused to go downstairs. I wet my bed rather than walk past the basement door to get to the bathroom. My parents took me to therapy. I never told the therapist about Tommy, just said I was afraid of basements. We moved 6 months later when my dad got a new job. I never said goodbye to Tommy. On our last night, I heard him crying through the vents, then screaming, then something that sounded like hundreds of marbles rolling across wood, faster and faster until they suddenly stopped. 23 years passed. I grew up, got married, had my own kids. I convinced myself Tommy was just childhood imagination mixed with the trauma of moving, maybe some carbon monoxide poisoning from an old house. That's what rational adults do. We explain away the impossible. Then last month, my mom died. Cancer. While going through her things, I found a box labeled Pennsylvania House, never open. Inside were newspaper clippings from 1978, for years before I was born. If you're still watching, hit subscribe now because what I found changes everything. The headlines read, "Local boy 9 found dead in basement after week-long search," and Thomas Garrett's body discovered in sealed coal cellar. The boy had been playing in the basement when the coal cellar door, a heavy iron door, somehow closed and locked from the outside. He died of starvation and dehydration, scratching at the walls until his fingers were worn to bone. But here's the thing that made me vomit when I read it. The article included a photograph of Tommy at his birthday party. Same brown hair, same striped shirt, but alive, his eyes were blue. And in the background of the photo, barely visible, was a young woman who looked exactly like my mother would have at 25. I dug deeper. My mom had been the Garrett's babysitter. She was supposed to be watching Tommy that day. The day he died alone in the basement, she was with her boyfriend, my father. They left town immediately after the funeral. I called the current owners of that house last week. They were happy to hear from someone who used to live there. They wanted to know if we'd ever experienced anything unusual. Their 7-year-old daughter had been talking to someone in the basement, someone named Tommy who played marbles, and asked her to bring her friends down to play. "Don't let her go down there alone," I told them. "And whatever you do, never let her bring other children down." "Why?" the mother asked. "What's down there?" I want to tell her the truth, that Tommy isn't a ghost. He's something that uses guilt and childhood innocence as a doorway, something that my mother's negligence let loose, that feeds on the young because they're the only ones who can see him clearly. But instead, I just said, "Just trust me. Keep that basement locked." They moved out a month later. The house is for sale again. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear marbles rolling across my ceiling, even though I live 3 states away. Because Tommy doesn't just haunt that house. He haunts everyone who abandoned him. He's waiting for me to have another child, another friend for him to play with. Comment below if you've ever had an imaginary friend that felt too real. And don't forget to like this video if it gave you chills. The attic was off limits. That was the one rule in my grandmother's house that you never, ever broke. She had a padlock on it, and the key stayed on a chain around her neck, even when she slept. But when you tell a 12-year-old not to look at something, you're basically guaranteeing they'll find a way. My cousin Maya and I were staying with Grandma for the summer of 2003, while our parents sorted out their messy divorces. Grandma's house in rural Maine was a neutral ground, the safe place where we could just be kids. But kids get bored, and bored kids get curious. And curious kids find bolt cutters in the garage. I need you to understand, What we found in that attic wasn't just disturbing. It fundamentally changed how I see the world. Because some things, once you know them, you can't unknow. And some doors, once opened, can never really be closed again. It was a Thursday afternoon. Grandma had gone to her weekly church meeting, which meant we had exactly 3 hours. Maya stood watch while I cut through padlock. It took longer than expected, my skinny arms shaking with the effort. When it finally snapped, we both froze, like the sound might somehow summon Grandma back instantly. The attic stairs unfolded with a groan. Hot, stale air rushed down, carrying the smell of old paper and something chemical, like the darkroom my photography teacher used at school. We climbed up using the flashlight from Grandma's junk drawer. The attic was exactly what you'd expect. Boxes of Christmas decorations, old furniture covered in sheets, mannequins that made us jump. But along the far wall was something unexpected. Hundreds of photographs hanging from clotheslines, like they were still drying, even though some looked decades old. Maya reached for one, and I'll never forget what she said. "Why are we in these pictures?" She was right. The photograph showed Maya and me exactly as we looked that day, standing in Grandma's kitchen. But the photo was yellowed with age, the edges crumbling. The timestamp in the corner read, July 15th, 1963. 40 years before. We looked through more. There we were at different ages. As babies, as teenagers, as adults we hadn't become yet. In clothes from different decades. Standing with people we didn't recognize. And in every photo we looked terrified. "This is impossible," Maya whispered, but she was already pulling down more pictures. That's when we found the notebooks. Stacks of them, filled with Grandma's careful handwriting. The first entry was dated 1961. "The children came again last night. Through the mirror, like always, they don't remember their previous visits. They never do, but I document everything. Every iteration, every timeline, every failure. I'm going to share what we read. But before I do, like and subscribe if you want to hear more true stories like this. Because what came next still haunts me. The notebooks described experiments. Grandma had been part of something called Project Kronos in the 1960s. Government-funded research into temporal perception. They were trying to understand prophetic dreams, déjà vu, precognition. Grandma was a receiver, someone who could see fragments of possible futures. But she saw more than fragments. She saw us. Over and over, in different timelines, different possibilities. And in every single one, something terrible happened when we turned 18. The photographs weren't old. They were from futures that hadn't happened yet, or pasts that had been erased. Grandma had been collecting them, studying them, trying to find the one timeline where we survived. Maya found the worst photo behind all the others, like it had been hidden. It showed both of us at what looked like our high school graduation. We were smiling, holding diplomas, normal, except behind us. In the background, every other person in the photo was lying on the ground, and there was something dark spreading across the gymnasium floor. Blood. The notebook entry for that photo read, Timeline 47B. The girls survive but become carriers. Infection spreads from graduation ceremony. 2,847 casualties in first week. Timeline terminated through intervention. Reset initiated. What does reset initiated mean? Maya asked. Before I could answer, we heard footsteps on the stairs. Not Grandma's careful shuffle. Something heavier, faster. We scrambled to hide behind the covered furniture. Flashlight off, barely breathing. A man stepped into the attic. He wore a suit that looked government-issued, all black with no identifying marks. He walked straight to the photographs like he knew exactly where they were. He began taking them down, putting them in a metal briefcase. "I know you're here," he said calmly. "Your grandmother called us. She's very disappointed. But more importantly, she's concerned you've seen too much." Maya grabbed my hand. I could feel her pulse racing to match mine. Timeline 52C is delicate, he continued. You're not supposed to know about the others. The knowledge itself could cause a deviation. Your grandmother has worked very hard to keep you on the right path. He turned toward our hiding spot. His eyes were wrong. They didn't reflect light, like normal eyes should. They absorbed it. In timeline 14A, you run now and I catch you on the stairs. Maya breaks her neck. In timeline 23D, you hide successfully, but the knowledge drives you insane by age 16. In timeline 31F, you attack me with that box cutter in your pocket, and I have to terminate you both. I didn't even know I had a box cutter in my pocket until he said it, but when I checked, there was. But in timeline 52C, he said, "You come out, you let me show you something important, and you understand why this is necessary." We came out. What choice did we have when he knew every move we might make? He showed us one final photograph from his briefcase. It was us, older, maybe in our 30s. We were standing in what looked like the same attic, but renovated, bright. We were smiling, really smiling, not the forced kind. We looked happy, safe. This is the only timeline where you both survived past 18, without causing a catastrophic event, he said. Your grandmother has been steering you toward your entire lives. Every birthday present, every piece of advice, every rule, calculated to keep you on this path. The attic was forbidden because seeing these other possibilities too early would create doubt. Doubt creates deviation. Deviation leads to... He gestured at the hidden photograph of the graduation massacre. What makes us so dangerous? Maya asked, not dangerous. Important. In most timelines, you both develop abilities similar to your grandmother's, but exponentially stronger. Without proper guidance, those abilities manifest violently at 18. The graduation photo, that was you, Maya, having a precognitive seizure that created a temporal feedback loop. Everyone in that room experienced all their possible deaths simultaneously. He put the photographs back in his briefcase. Your grandmother will be home soon. You'll go downstairs. You'll never speak of this. You'll follow her rules, no matter how arbitrary they seem. And you'll survive to the happy ending in that photograph. How do we know you're telling the truth? I asked. He smiled, not a pleasant expression on his non-reflective eyes. Because in the timeline where you don't believe me, you've already picked up that box cutter. And in 3 seconds, Maya stops you from using it by grabbing your wrist, but you accidentally cut her instead. She bleeds out in 17 minutes. I looked down. My hand was on the box cutter. Maya was reaching for my wrist. We both froze. See? Your grandmother isn't keeping you prisoner. She's keeping you alive. Every single day. She watches you make choices that could end everything, and she gently guides you back to the safe path. It's exhausting work. The least you can do is stop making it harder. He left the way he came. We put everything back, including a new padlock from Grandma's supply in the garage. When she came home, she looked at us for a long moment, then said, "I trust you had a boring afternoon." "Yes, Grandma," we said in unison. Maya and I are 34 now. We survived 18 without incident, no abilities, no catastrophes. We tell ourselves the man in the suit was lying, that it was all some elaborate hoax. But sometimes I catch Grandma looking at us with such relief it makes my chest tight. And sometimes in my peripheral vision, I swear I see other versions of us. Scared, bleeding, powerful, dead, standing right beside us, separated by nothing more than a thin veil of carefully orchestrated choices. The attic is still locked. Grandma still wears the key. And we follow every single one of her arbitrary rules. Because in the timeline where we don't, we already know how it ends. Share your own unexplained childhood discovery in the comments. And remember, some doors are locked for your protection, not your imprisonment. I was 9 when my 6-year-old sister, Lily, went missing for 13 hours. The police said she'd gotten lost in the woods behind our house. That happens all the time with kids. They found her sitting by the creek, perfectly fine, not a scratch on her. Case closed. Family reunited. Local news does a feel-good story. Except Lily didn't come back alone, and I was the only one who knew it. Our house backed up to about 300 acres of protected forest in Oregon. Lily and I played at the edge sometimes, but we knew not to go deep. The trees got too thick, too dark, and compass needles spun wildly if you went more than 100 yards in. Local legend said indigenous tribes had considered it curse land, That's why settlers got it so cheap. But kids don't care about ancient warnings when there are fort-building opportunities. The day Lily disappeared, we'd been fighting. She'd torn my favorite comic book, and I told her I wish she would just disappear. You know, stupid kid stuff you say when you're angry. Except she took it literally. While my parents were inside making lunch, Lily walked into those woods to disappear, so you could be happy. The search was massive. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers walking arm in arm through the trees. I wasn't allowed to help. Too young, they said. So I sat at my bedroom window, watching flashlight beams sweep through the darkness like searching eyes. I fell asleep there, and that's when I had the dream. In the dream, Lily was in a place that looked like our woods but wrong. The trees grew downward, roots reaching toward a soil sky. She was walking hand in hand with another little girl who looked exactly like her. Same pink dress, same light-up sneakers, same pigtails. But the other Lily's smile was too wide, and when she laughed, it sounded like wind chimes made of bones. I woke up to commotion downstairs. They'd found her. Mom was crying. Dad was laughing. And Lily was sitting on the couch wrapped in a police blanket, sipping hot chocolate. She looked fine. Perfect, actually. Not a single twig in her hair. No dirt on her dress. Like she'd been gone for 13 minutes, not 13 hours. Where were you, sweetheart? Mom kept asking. Playing with my new friend, Lily said. She lives in the backward place. The adults exchanged those looks. Kids say weird things, probably trauma. She'll be fine. They scheduled therapy appointments, bought her toys. But I knew something they didn't. Because when Lily looked at me over her hot chocolate, her eyes flashed silver for just a second. And behind her, in the reflection of the TV screen, I could see two shadows. That night, Lily came to my room. She moved differently, too fluid, like she was remembering how joints worked. I'm supposed to tell you something, she said, crawling onto my bed. Tell me what? That your wish came true. Your real sister did disappear. I'm the better version. The one who won't tear your comics or tell Mom when you sneak candy. The perfect sister you wanted. Before I could scream, she put her hand over my mouth. Her palm was ice cold and smelled like deep earth. If you tell anyone, the real Lily stays in the backward place forever. She's playing with the others who got replaced. They're not sad. They don't remember they're supposed to come home. But if you say anything, if you even hint that I'm not her, she becomes one of the hollow ones. And trust me, you don't want to know what that means. She took her hand away. I gasped for air. You're lying. You're just Lily trying to scare me because you're mad about the comic book. She smiled that too wide smile for my dream. Tomorrow at breakfast, I'll ask for scrambled eggs. Your real sister is allergic to eggs. Watch what doesn't happen. The next morning, replacement Lily asked for scrambled eggs. Ate them happily. No allergic reaction, no EpiPen, no trip to the ER. My parents didn't seem to notice. They smiled and ruffled her hair and talked about how glad they were to have her home safe. For those of you still watching, drop a comment if you've ever noticed someone you love acting like a completely different person overnight. Because what happened next got so much worse. Replacement Lily was perfect. She cleaned her room without being asked. She shared her toys. She never threw tantrums. My parents were thrilled. The experience really matured her, they said. But I saw the truth in small moments. She'd forget how to use doorknobs, turn them the wrong way. She'd stare at mirrors like she was seeing through them. And sometimes late at night, I'd hear her talking to someone in her room, except the voice answering her was also hers. 3 weeks after she returned, I followed her into the woods. I had to know what the backward place was, had to understand what had taken my sister. She walked with purpose, like she was following a map only she could see. About a mile in, she stopped at a tree that looked wrong. Its bark spiraled counterclockwise, and its branches grew downward into the ground. She knocked on the trunk 3 times. A section of bark swung inward like a door. Inside wasn't inside. It was another forest, identical but inverted. Gravity felt negotiable. My stomach lurched as my inner ear tried to make sense of up and down. And there, playing in a circle were dozens of children, all in pairs, each child with their perfect double. I found the real Lily immediately. She was playing patty cake with another replacement, both giggling in perfect synchronization. Her eyes were vacant, blissful. She didn't recognize me at all. "She's happier here," replacement Lily said beside me. "No fights, no anger, no wishes for her to disappear. Just endless play with friends who never get tired, never get mean. This is kidnapping. It's wrong. Is it? Look at your parents. They're happier with me. I do everything right. I am what they wanted her to be. And she's happy here, without the pressure of being human correctly." I watched my real sister playing, and my heart broke, because part of me, a horrible, secret part, knew the replacement was right. Life had been easier since she arrived. No more fights, no more torn comics, no more getting in trouble because Lily tattled. "Can I visit her?" I asked. "No, the barrier only lets each person cross once. You're here now, which means..." She trailed off, looking at something behind me. I turned. Another me stood there. Perfect posture, clean clothes, friendly smile. "Hello," other me said. "I'm ready to be the better brother. The one who doesn't fight with his sister, doesn't disappoint his parents, doesn't struggle in school. You can stay here and play forever. No responsibilities. No growing up. Just games and friends who understand you're tired of trying so hard." I ran faster than I ever had, crashing through the inverted forest, while both Lilies laughed behind me. The other me didn't chase. He walked calmly, knowing exactly where I'd go. I burst through the bark door, but when I turned around, the tree looked normal, solid. I beat my fists against it until they bled, but it wouldn't open. When I got home, mud-covered and crying, replacement Lily was already there. She told our parents I'd gotten upset and run into the woods, that she'd been worried sick. They comforted me, made me hot chocolate, put me to bed early. But when I looked in the mirror, I checked my eyes obsessively for any sign of silver. That was 15 years ago. Replacement Lily grew up to be valedictorian, got into Harvard, became a doctor. She's perfect. She visits our parents every weekend, sends thoughtful gifts, never forgets a birthday. Sometimes she still looks at me with those moments of silver-eyed knowing. Last month, she had a daughter. The baby is beautiful, healthy, perfect. But yesterday, my sister called me crying. The first time I've ever heard her cry. She went into the woods, she whispered, just for 10 minutes while I was gardening. When she came back, her eyes were silver for just a second. And she's been perfect. Too perfect. She's only 2, but she's been cleaning up her toys, eating all her vegetables, hasn't cried once. You know what that means? I said, the backward place takes them younger now, before they can form real memories, before anyone really knows who they are. What do you want me to do? There was a long pause. Nothing, because the truth is, and I can finally say this after all these years, your real sister is still happy there. I check on her sometimes, through the mirrors when no one's watching. She's still 9, still playing, still laughing. She never had to face Dad's drinking getting worse, Mom's depression, the divorce, the custody battles. She never had to grow up into a world that would have broken her gentle heart. So, you're saying the replacements are a kindness, maybe, or maybe I just tell myself that because I stole a little girl's entire life and need to believe it was for something better than my own existence. She hung up, and now I'm left wondering, if that tree opened for me today, if other me offered to trade places again, would I say yes? Would you? To never struggle, never disappoint, never age, just exist in endless play while a better version of you lives a life you were supposed to have? But here's what really keeps me up at night. Last week, I was going through old photo albums. Pictures from before Lily disappeared. In every single one, her eyes are silver. Every single one. Which means either the replacement has somehow changed the past, or, and this is what I can't stop thinking, what if the real Lily was always a replacement? What if we were all replacements from the start, and the backward place is where the originals have always been? waiting for us to remember. What if none of us came back the same? Because none of us were ever real to begin with. Hit subscribe if these stories gave you chills. And tell me in the comments, have you ever noticed someone in your life suddenly become perfect? Because if you have, you might want to check their eyes in the right light. You might not like what you see. And remember, some childhood memories are better left buried. But the truth has a way of surfacing, whether we want it to or not. Sweet dreams.